Aloha and welcome to Survey of Psychology, also known as Psychology 100. If you're watching this video, it probably means that you're either a big fan of me and have found this randomly on YouTube, or more likely, you have registered for my Survey of Psychology class that's held entirely online. Now, part of the reason why I wanted to put this video together is to, one, welcome you to the class, and to also talk a little bit about my enthusiasm for teaching and also my interests and passions within the field of psychology. And also to, first and foremost, give you a chance to kind of connect with your instructor. One of the things that comes along with online classes, unfortunately, is that you won't ever really get a chance to interact with me in person. And you won't have the opportunity to witness an in-person lecture of mine, which in some ways is kind of unfortunate because I really cherish the opportunity to make psychology come alive in an in-person type setting. But with the nature of an online class, we simply don't have that. So I wanted to take this opportunity to connect with you as a student that has an interest in psychology or is attempting to satisfy a general education requirement. And either way, I think that this video can be a good opportunity for you to connect with me a little bit and make the online learning experience more personable. Because in some ways, one of my main goals with this class is to provide a learning experience that's just as impactful and powerful as you would encounter if you had this class in person. So the purpose of this video here is going to be threefold. The first part of it is to give me a chance to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me and where my background is. Because I think in some ways, one of the most enjoyable things that I found in my undergraduate experience was learning about the instructor or professor that was teaching a given class. It allowed me to kind of get a window into their worldviews, their research, the things that they found most interesting about the scholarly pursuits they're engaging in. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I want to talk about some important overarching themes that I feel I really try to emphasize throughout this entire course. And we'll talk about how those themes can make the entire learning experience more interesting and more engaging, and hopefully more applicable to each and every one of you. And lastly, I'll go over a few things in terms of course logistics and offer a few helpful suggestions for how to do well in an online class, which may not have the same structure that is found in a lot of in-person classes. So to begin, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a clinical psychology PhD student, and I've been in graduate school studying clinical psychology for about 4 years now. So I've had a lot of time to devote myself to studying all things within psychology, but more specifically related to clinical psychology. So we're talking about things like understanding, diagnosing, and treating mental health disorders and other types of psychological concerns that people struggle with. So that's where a lot of my research and clinical interests lie. But more broadly speaking, I'm a huge psychology nerd and a huge nerd in general. So I really enjoy all things related to academia and learning, teaching students, and designing classes that have the most potential for engagement. So I'm very passionate about teaching, and I'm looking forward to pursuing a career in academia as a professor once I obtain my PhD in a few years here. So one of the things that I've really spent a lot of time doing is reflecting on the best and most optimal strategies for engaging students. So I hope you'll kind of see some of those strategies come to life here in this class. So in terms of what I'm most interested in clinical psychology, because students always like learning about clinical psychology, mental health concerns, psychological disorders, and in fact, my coverage of the material in the textbook in chapters 14 and 15 on psychological disorders and their treatment are probably two of the most exciting chapters that students tend to find the most interesting throughout this class. So I really do look forward to teaching you those chapters, but more so within my own personal interests. I'm very interested in looking at different types of psychological treatments that can be used to help individuals that are suffering from psychological disorders and other mental health concerns. So my ideal kind of goals and strivings within my research and my clinical practice are to help clients alleviate the suffering that they're going through in their lives. And on the research side of things, a lot of what I do is seeking to understand the process of change and the effects of various types of cognitive behavioral therapies, and more specifically, cognitive behavioral therapies that emphasize the role of acceptance and mindfulness in relation to understanding human suffering, but also well-being and prosperity. And we'll see throughout this entire course that a lot of the way I talk about the different kinds of course materials and the different chapters in the textbook, you can kind of get some flavors from the examples that I give and the way I explain the research and phenomena that we discuss throughout this course. It's coming from the lens of someone that has worked extensively with clients and has done a lot of research within clinical psychology. So you'll see that a lot of these different topics that we talk about throughout the course, a lot of them do relate back to mental health concerns, and we all have mental health. I mean, whether it be prosperity or pain, I think these are all things that are very fundamentally human. And we'll talk more about those connections throughout the rest of this course. So that's kind of my background. In terms of my personal life, I enjoy doing a lot of things in the outdoors. I love hiking, being active. I'm an avid runner. I enjoy playing sports, although I'm not intrinsically talented. I'm not from Hawaii. I moved out here a couple of years ago for graduate school, and I'm actually originally from Minnesota. You can tell from my coffee cup here. I'm Midwest, born and raised. But I've really enjoyed getting a chance to study and live out here on Oahu these last couple of years. And I feel like it's really allowed me to get a greater understanding of diverse cultural backgrounds within our multiculturally diverse world. And we'll talk about how appreciating cultural diversity and the rich individual differences within humans are one of the overarching themes in this course. So that's me in a nutshell. That's kind of what I hope to impart to you, at least in terms of who I am. But now I want to talk a little bit about some of the main themes that I've infused into this course. So there are 3 of these themes, and the first one I want to talk about involves learning to think like a psychologist. So thinking like a psychologist involves a lot more than just clinical intuition or following your hunch or wisdom or all those different fluffy terms. It's actually linked quite closely to empirical scientific discovery using the principles and tenets of the scientific method. And we'll talk a lot more about those principles of empirical scientific discovery within chapters 1 and 2 in our textbook. But more so, what I really want to get across here is that learning to think like a psychologist is a skill that can be useful for each and every one of you, regardless of whether you want to pursue psychology as a major or as an eventual career someday. Because thinking like a psychologist involves critically examining all of the evidence that might be out there regarding a given topic or a given phenomena that you're looking at. It involves keeping an open mind to different possibilities, but not simply buying into something just because you think it would be the right thing to do, or because some persuasive politician or advertiser is trying to tell you that this is the way. It involves critically analyzing all of the pieces of data and coming to a reasoned conclusion and qualifying that conclusion based on the confidence or lack of confidence we have in the evidence in support of that conclusion. So these processes can be applied to everything that we do in our world. We can apply it to things that we do when examining pieces of newspaper that we read, or examining things that come up on our Facebook news feed, or even in terms of buying a new car, or figuring out what major you want to choose, or if you decide to pursue a career in psychology within the mental health profession. It can involve assessing and diagnosing clinical concerns, providing diagnoses, coming up with treatment plans, providing diagnoses, coming up with treatment plans, delivering those treatments with fidelity. Those are all things where thinking like a psychologist with those critical thinking skills can be a great way to go about one's life. So we'll talk about that as an overarching theme within the course. And we'll see how the material that we talk about within Chapter 1 and then Chapter 2 on research methods can allow us to be able to hone those critical thinking skills and then apply them to various domains within psychology throughout subsequent chapters in the textbook. So I would encourage you to think about how you might be able to think like a psychologist in different areas of this course, but also in different areas of your life. The second theme involves applicability. A lot of times students that struggle the most in college classes, especially in general education classes where they may be taking maybe studying content that's outside of their area of interest or their major, is that students ask the question, well, how does this apply to me? It's not really relevant. This is just pointless. And I understand that. I was once an undergraduate student too, and I can recall sitting in classes that I felt like, oh, there's no point. So I've really tried hard to be able to search for the applicability of these topics within psychological science to different areas of human functioning within our diverse sociocultural context and our modern world. So you'll see various times throughout this semester across the different chapters links that are being established between the stuff that we're studying and the things that we're encountering on a daily basis in our lives. So principles in psychology have been applied far and wide. We see psychological science has studied things as, interestingly enough, as how we form attractions within romantic relationships, to things within social psychology, such as how do people function within groups. We've seen psychology applied to forensic and legal settings in terms of what are the defining characteristics of a psychopath. We see psychology being applied in the workplace to improve job performance and job satisfaction among employees. We see it applied in the educational system. But more so importantly, I want you to be able to strive to find ways to apply psychology to you yourselves personally in your day-to-day lives, in both your physical and mental well-being. Because in a lot of ways, you'll see within Chapter 11 on health and well-being, and also in Chapter 14 on psychological disorders and mental health, that a lot of these principles apply to all humans. And that through a greater understanding of these psychological phenomenon, I would hope that by the end of this course, you might be able to take away some key principles, theories, or findings that you could apply to your own self, to be able to better examine your own thinking processes, the way you relate to your emotions, your behavioral predispositions, how we learn, Chapter 6, how we form and retain memories, Chapter 7, how we develop as humans all the way from conception to the end of the life, in Chapter 9 on human development. All of these things I hope that you will find to be fascinating and broadly applicable. So this brings me to the third and final tenet that I've been trying to infuse throughout this course, and this involves focusing on individual differences and cultural diversity. And I think that appreciating cultural diversity is something that we've been able to do especially well in this very diverse context out here in Hawaii. And I think that that really fits with the way that we approach the study of psychology, where we're not trying to put people into these nice, neat little categories. Although it may seem that way at times, especially when we think about how we diagnose psychological disorders. And as an example, people might come to see themselves as just that disorder and not more of a rich, complex, unique individual. But the beauty of psychology is that it's flexible, and we can adapt it for whatever purpose or whatever sort of application we're seeking to accomplish in that given moment with that particular goal. So I would encourage you to appreciate the rich diversity within humankind, and that diversity can span many different levels of analysis, ranging from the biological to the individual, the psychological to the cultural, and seeing how psychology oftentimes intersects with other disciplines such as sociology, anthropology, cultural psychology, and we can see how all of these different intersections allow for an increased understanding of the unique cultural diversity of all humans around the world. And we'll look at those intersections throughout different chapters and how culture has a very profound impact on a lot of the psychological phenomena that we study. So within those three tenets, I would encourage you to dwell on those. So as we move to the end of this introductory video, I did want to just talk about a few brief things in terms of course logistics. So I've posted a syllabus online. I've posted an introductory PDF that gives you more detailed instructions about the various course requirements. But just to kind of offer you a brief summary of what we're hoping to accomplish in this class, we've adapted the class to fit this particular online format, which has been explicitly delineated in the syllabus. And the biggest thing that I would like to impart to you all here today is that this course is very self-driven, meaning there's not going to be a specified time when we meet for lectures every week. So you're not going to have an opportunity to be held accountable with regularly scheduled class periods. So you'll find yourself being able to work through my lecture slides, which are PowerPoints that have audio recordings on them. You'll be able to work through those at your convenience. You can read the online e-textbook at your convenience, as well as completing homework assignments and tests by the relevant due dates. All of that is completely self-paced and self-motivated. So I would encourage you to find whatever system that you can that works best for you, that can allow you to complete all of those course requirements. I sincerely want each and every one of you to do well in the class and get whatever grade you want to get out of the class. So I want to state here again, in addition to the way I've described it in the syllabus, in my welcome email, I want each and every one of you to do well. And if you encounter yourself struggling at any point in time with the material or anything in the class, my door is always open, virtually of course, and I would be happy to arrange a time to chat via video teleconference on Zoom, either through phone call or email or whatever method of communication works best for you. But with that said, I would encourage you to continue to enjoy your process of learning and discovery along the way in your education. And I hope that this class allows you to learn more about psychological science and how we can apply that rigorous empiricism to many topics of social relevance in our contemporary world today. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I wish you best of luck in all of your endeavors throughout this semester, and I look forward to interacting with you through discussion questions and other types of settings within this class. Thank you, and have a good day.